Paul Maurer. Welcome to the Getting to Launch podcast. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
It is 9 o'clock in the morning when we're recording this. You're very brave.
I am the golf industry has made me that way.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on this show. We first met at a press event for entrepreneurs and small business owners in Baltimore back a number of months ago. You had received a grant from BG&E for your business and the great work you've been doing. So I would love to just start our conversation off by talking about Edge Golf Performance, which is your business. You're located in Columbia, Maryland. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So Edge Golf Performance is a year-round training facility where it's pretty much a one-stop shop for golfers to get better. We have a team of PGA professionals and TPI professionals, which is like the golf fitness certification you can get. And so there's golf lessons. We have a lot of people that come in and practice almost like it's their driving range. We have simulator leagues in the winter. We have golf fitness. We have a really large junior academy. So club fitting. So pretty much anything that, pretty much train indoors to play better outdoors.
I am not a golfer. Educate me a little bit and tell me what makes your performance facility different from other golf performance facilities in the area.
Good question. I think the best word I can use is probably authentic, that we're kind of embedded in the community. Collectively, we've all taught for a combined 100 some years. I think just being in the area and embedded in the community with our expertise is what sets us apart versus you might go to another place that might be a national chain that you sign up with a coach, and by the end of your lesson pack you might have a different coach because there's more turnover and things like that. So I'd say that would probably be the biggest differentiator.
And you have a pretty full coaching team, don't you, as I recall?
Yeah, and actually it just grew. Recently accepted the director of instruction position at Turf Valley Resort, where I'll kind of be overseeing both facilities, and it's on the other side of the county, but we have two great golf courses. There's a lot of corporate events there. There's a big memberships. We have, myself included, four PGA professionals, two PGA associates, and two TPI fitness professionals. So, I think it's teaching me better leadership skills, as sometimes I have to not be in the trenches so much, but to kind of sit back and play center field and set everyone else up to be successful.
Okay, so tell me about where the idea for Edge Golf Performance came from. Because lots of people have ideas for a business, lots of people have great ideas, but the ability to actually execute, to launch, and to keep a place in business, it takes more than just ideas. But I do want to start with, where did the idea come from? What made you decide this was something you wanted to do?
Great question. When I first got into the golf industry, I've always worked at a number of different facilities in Howard County. And when I got really into teaching, I would go to different teaching seminars and I'd see, all the best ranked instructors and they're all using the best technology and things like that. And I said, hey, I'd like that opportunity. And the facility I was at, I just knew that wasn't going to be a possibility for them to make the investment. So I had a pretty big base of students, and I had an opportunity that I moved into my grandparents' old house, and my grandfather was the one that actually got me into golf. And so they have a big detached garage, and I pretty much built a teaching studio there. And when I was telling one of my teaching mentors my idea, he's like, it's kind of like that moment in the movie Jerry Maguire where he's calling the clients. He's like, "Are you with me? Are you coming with me?" And yeah, so I made the move. I invested in some of the technology and started to contract out of different golf courses. So that was essentially the birth of being out on my own and starting a business. I had seen some different facilities online. I was like, oh, wow, that would be such an incredible thing to not just give my students access during a lesson, but imagine if people could practice with these tools year round. And then I launched a junior academy that grew really quickly. And that's kind of how the coaching team started to build. Got lucky getting a couple of young, passionate coaches that they were getting ready to transition to be ready for a full-time position. And yeah, that was pretty much how it all started. And then it took me about 18 months to find a location that fit, because I wanted taller ceilings and location was important. And there were a couple close calls, and then I was pretty much entering a world that I knew nothing about, commercial real estate. While I did go through the PGA program. Before that, I graduated from Towson with a business degree. So I, had a business background, had a golf background, but then in construction and looking for locations and negotiating leases, and that was all completely foreign to me.
I'm going to talk about your location and the tech because you do lean into technology. I wasn't aware before our conversation that that was kind of the driving factor of what caused you to launch your business, but I think that's really cool. So, what is it about the tech that you use that helps golfers improve their game?
To me, it takes so much of the guesswork out of it. I think, with social media nowadays, you see countless golf tips everywhere, of try this, do this. And another analogy I heard is it's like, you go to the pharmacy and there's a lot of different pills and drugs, but if you don't know which one matters to you, well, things could go badly quickly. So, one, it gives people and coaches a clear point of, well, what's the golf ball doing? Why is it doing it? What's the club doing to make that happen? And lastly, what are we doing? And the other thing I've learned a lot from teaching is when people feel like they're doing something, they're typically not. So if they're trying to feel something in their swing, it's typically not happening. So if you're going to a driving range and the only feedback that you have is the golf ball, which again is typically misunderstood by people why it does what it does, then people are trying stuff or someone's giving them a tip. And, before you know it, people's heads are so clouded with what they're thinking about that, are they truly getting better? I think the other thing that, makes golf unique is it's probably the only sport that isn't practiced in the environment that if you play basketball, you can scrimmage and you're scrimmaging on the same hoops. But golf, people tend to practice on a flat driving range mat to a wide open field. So outside of just kind of giving you data on what the club and ball is doing, there's different test centers, that you can kind of scrimmage and put a number to your practice and how well am I actually doing. And so what I found, especially as I've gotten busier, for myself, I've been able to play better because I know exactly when I hit balls, I'm getting that feedback. So I think, ultimately, if people can find more enjoyment in it, I think even as people are first learning, like you said, you've never played before, but a lot of times when people
Well, I
first
have played, but I like to pretend that I haven't because I'm so bad.
But so when you played, was it just going out with friends or was it
Yeah.
like, yeah. And usually when people are going for the first time, they're less concerned about having fun, which is why they should be out there. And they're more concerned, am I going to slow people up? Am I doing this wrong? Really just a bunch of things that aren't very positive.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we've had events with brand new golfers never touch a club and they can in a simulator environment start to understand the concept and what club would I use here, and if they hit a ball in the water, well, your ball is still right in front of you because it didn't actually go in the water. So it can be a nice stepping stone to get people more comfortable with those things so that by the time they get out to the golf course, they have a little bit better idea of what they're doing.
So you really can work with people all the way from very beginners all the way up to pros.
Absolutely.
There's something everybody can learn.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'd say for the data, we definitely attract better players. I think like the past maybe 3 or 4 high school state champions are practicing our facility in the winter, because they trust the data. Players come in, some really good amateurs, but then you also get newer players that, find enjoyment in it. And I think that's another thing with just golf in general. Since COVID, the green fees have gone way up. Just the cost of golf has gone up. It's tougher to get tee times. And the reality of golf is its three barriers have always been it's expensive, it's hard, and it's time consuming. So what would take you, say, 5 hours or more to commit to go playing 18 holes, you could come play 18 holes by yourself in 45 minutes or bring a buddy and play in an hour and a half, and you still get a golf experience. But it's not that same time commitment that you would have had to make. And, younger parents, things like that, that can be appealing too, because now they're not gone for over half the weekend.
So the location that you picked, you mentioned it took some time to kind of find the right
Mhm.
one for you. What was it that sealed the deal for you on this particular location?
A big thing for me, and like anything, you learn a lot from the experience that probably what I was looking for then might not be what I'd be looking for now. But I wanted taller ceilings because we do have an indoor short game area. So if someone wanted to hit higher shots, they're not restricted by that. Had to be in Howard County because again, I've taught there and built my base there, that to me that would be foolish to look outside of it. What you really have to be careful of is, if you're looking at a location, is not just base it off of that one time that you're there. So there was a place that we went and looked at once and hey, this looks pretty good. And we go back another time and there's this loud kickboxing studio next door. Right. And like not just like, okay, it's a gym and there's some music and but it sounded like a nightclub, like the bass just thumping against the wall.
And you're saying that's not the vibe you were going with at your golfing
That was,
facility.
we play some music, but I wasn't trying to battle them with what songs we were playing. So okay, so that one got ruled out, and then then it was even getting to the point that going on for that long that I said, okay, well maybe we just need to find a smaller space and have a place to teach, and maybe it won't be as grand. And then pretty much as soon as I thought of that. I saw somewhere the previous tenant was trying to get out of their lease of where we're at now, so it wasn't even on Zillow, or not Zillow, on blank LoopNet was one that I would use. And so I sent it to my commercial realtor, which I would have never even known that, how helpful they can be. But fortunately, he was one of my students, so he was a tremendous help. And so sent it to him, and then we went and looked at it, and looked at it a few times and then, we pushed really hard and got open March 1st, which probably wasn't ideal from the simulator time. From teaching, it was fine, but
Yeah. It's something that I hear people talk about all the time. Like this is one of the biggest challenges of when you have a physical space with your business is finding the right space. And I don't know that I've ever heard an entrepreneur say their space is perfect. I don't know if there is such a thing out there. But
yeah.
it always takes more time than you anticipate. But I also feel like in general, most people say it's worth holding out for something that is close, at
Yeah,
least
that,
close
that
to
that
it.
that was the advice that I had gotten. I was definitely kind of growing impatient because again, I felt like at the time I was, I had these coaches that would be really good fits for what I wanted to do. Because if I go from pretty much teaching out of my garage where, essentially there's no overhead to taking all this on, 100% owner, so there's no backing that essentially in my case I had to turn a profit month one. But golf teaches you patience. It allowed me to hold out that long.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so you said you opened March of which year?
2023. So we're coming up on finishing year two.
Right. So you open March 2023 and your launch day. So you're heading into launch day and sort of the days and the weeks heading into that day when you know the facility is going to actually be open. You're going to be able to have people come in. You've said like there's pressure on you. You're feeling this pressure. I've got to turn a profit. I've got to turn a profit very quickly. Like I'm on the line here. What was going through your head in those days and weeks leading up to launch?
Yeah, I don't know, it's honestly a blur. In mid-January, we pretty much opened up our academy registration, our junior academy, to pretty much help get some cash flow in. And my contractor, had been my best friend since we were 2 years old. He builds houses for a living, so we were putting hours in there. That was just pretty much round the clock, and so every day was just go, go, go. That sometimes is tough to like you don't have time to panic.
The silver lining in everything that entrepreneurs
Yeah,
can always find. There's no time
and
to.
yeah, and then you put these business plans together and you look for funding and then it's like, all right, we're here, and then all of a sudden it's like you're going, well, wait a minute, the numbers aren't matching up with what I wrote. Why? Everything looked good on paper. But that's I would imagine that's normal for any business that really having a deep understanding of what your customers and clients are looking for and then finding out ways to offer that, which as we found that, hey, as great as this is indoors, having access to outdoor facilities to bring both worlds together is really the perfect fit. And fortunately, we have those relationships now.
Yeah. Okay. So you launch. It's a blur up until launch day. The doors open, and you come to a realization fairly quickly that oh, I wish we would have maybe had an outdoor space that was already set up, but you've got the relationships. How long had you been in this business before you launched in 2023?
Like the golf business.
The golf business.
Well, I got my first job when I was 16 in the golf business as a cleaning carts, picking the driving range, and I kind of worked my way up. Let's see, that must have been 2005. Oh my gosh, coming up on This might be my 20th year.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Okay, so but that's an advantage that not all entrepreneurs have because some entrepreneurs choose to go into a business that's not in their area, but that's definitely an advantage. So I would imagine that as things became clear, as you started realizing that all the numbers weren't matching up the way you planned, which is completely normal, that you probably were able to pretty quickly come to the ideas that you came to in terms of ways to pivot and ways to adapt. But can you
Yeah.
tell me, like, what were some of those very first things that you did when you were like, okay, the numbers aren't here. We know cash flow is a thing. What were some of the first things you did to try and close those gaps?
Yeah, well, I have a number of adult students who are very successful entrepreneurs, but then I also have a lot of relationships from the golf industry. Probably, let's see, I guess he was my first boss and, a good friend now, Kevin Smith, the general manager at Timbers at Troy. He had given me, kind of what they use, and it's this daily revenue report. And, you pretty much categorize each area that, I pretty much have it private lessons, academy, man rentals, every area, and then you lay out for the month of what's our budget, what are we looking to hit, and then every day when you plug in this is what we sold yesterday, it kind of auto populates and you can really see where you're ahead or where you're not. And then on top of that, kind of laying out a marketing calendar for the month, or like what do we have upcoming, or what can we put together that is going to create some interest. So in our case with the season, it was more about lessons and instruction than necessarily trying to educate people on practicing in there, which then in that case was growing the coaching team. So I
So that was a pivot that you weren't initially planning to grow the coaching team that fast at the beginning.
Right. Well, and initially I was going to have two full-time golf coaches, and unfortunately, early on with one of them, it didn't work out. So there's another curveball. And then probably that first summer, I was approached by a coach in the area, Damon Lucas. He's taught in the area forever. He was actually the previous director of instruction at Turf Valley. He just moved on to a position in Northern Virginia, but he came in and was interested in teaching there some. And hey, I can bring these clients, he had some ideas, and so and that kind of got us access to start teaching over at Turf Valley in addition to what we were already doing at Timbers at Troy. And so he would bring people over, and then, hey, you should have some type of membership here. And that's when I started to realize that, I mean, probably since we opened, there's probably like 8 or 9 indoor facilities that have opened in Maryland, but they're all based around bar and entertainment, which I think is what makes us different because, while we have leagues and things like that, our bread and butter is, what can we do to help you play better golf? So then with that, when you look at like a pricing model, we don't have the bar behind the bays, we don't have couches, things like that really were a lot more similar to a really high-end driving range, so our price points and what we're offering, and if you want people to come in there regularly, it's going to be because they find value in the data or that we have hardwired cameras in every bay. So once kind of came to that realization, then okay, we grew a membership, and I think about 40% of them stayed throughout the whole year. Then we grew even more this winter. And then what I'm going to try this year is May through October have kind of off-peak pricing, not just for the bays, but also the memberships. Because what we did last summer is we had what we called Trackman Tuesday, where we discounted the bays from $45 to $25. So it was a special for just that day. And we would do more rentals in that day than the rest of the week combined. So clearly, price had something to do with it. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what we need to do, I'd rather be full at that rate than, very little at the other. And then, this time of year, you can charge a little bit more because the golf courses are closed. It's, last week, 10 degrees outside.
And what have you learned about ways to test pricing structures? Because that's a huge thing, and everybody ends up changing their pricing structures and their revenue model at some point in time. You just have to. That's just the game. But
Yeah,
what have you
I
learned
think,
about it?
well, I think in some of it's throw an idea against the wall and see if it sticks. Another one is then the people that are coming in there, talk to them. So like one guy last year had one tier of membership that I think he was paying 250 a month, and then he was coming in there pretty often, and then he canceled his membership, and we started seeing him again recently, and then I was talking with him, and he said, just with like my monthly budget when I go play golf outside, I'm spending X amount that I couldn't justify spending this. He said, but I did start playing worse when I dropped my membership. And then I said, well, hey, here's what I'm thinking for this year. Do you think that would be something you'd be, oh yeah, that would be great. Like I could definitely justify that. And more importantly, then play better golf throughout the year. So I think, like they say, it's always a lot easier to retain the customers you have than finding new ones. So, finding what they want, what they're looking for, and see if you can offer it.
How do you feel like you have changed over the course of this process?
Well, I think there's pros and cons.
For
I
sure. Absolutely.
I think it's got me more organized. It's kind of forced me to learn to be a better leader.
In what ways?
Well, I always had no problem filling my lesson book, right? But now I have to coach younger coaches and things like that and make sure they're successful and what are they looking for in a job? And, how do I set everyone up for success so we can continue this long-term authentic experience people get that, hey, yeah, they've all been coaching here for years. Not every year I'm trying to find a new assistant coach, so it's a brand new face to people. So I think, they're just learning to delegate duties. They're definitely good things, but they've been challenging for me because maybe that means that I'm giving up teaching a lesson to watch one of my assistants teach and, give them a good, better how of how they can deliver a better lesson so they can retain clients and grow, ultimately be happier. And then again, that's going to bring more revenue into the business, but it's a short-term sacrifice. So I think little things like that. And I'm learning as I go. Just like I tell them, I'm not perfect. I'm trying to figure this out too.
We all are. But you know what? I actually think that one of the gifts of entrepreneurship is having to face our own imperfections.
Yeah,
Because you really find out very quickly that I mean not that either any of us thinks that we're perfect, but like we found out very quickly what our weaknesses are in this business.
yeah, one thing with me, and I'll say I'm not assertive enough in a number of things, and being a manager and owner, you need to be in situations. So that's been a challenge for me that I work on. But I guess the more you put yourself in the situations, the more you figure it out.
You do. There's a saying in entrepreneurship circles that you grow as an entrepreneur when you start working on your business and not in your business.
Yeah, no, that's true. One thing I learned from one of my first bosses is, never feel like you're above any job. I don't love it, but what was I doing when I was closing last night? I was cleaning bathrooms. Not fun, but hey, if I'm in there doing it, well, then that means anyone should be willing to jump in and do it. But at the same time, you got to be willing to step back and realize that, yeah, if I can set all these people up for success, then, that's going to be worth my time than just living on that lesson tee hour
Yeah.
after hour.
So it's like learning both delegating and empowering your people and your team members and your
Right.
employees, but also being willing to do the grunt work in the moments where it just has to get done and there's nobody else to do it.
Absolutely. And then, hopefully instill that mindset in them because, I kind of view it like I'm growing into a second location with, what I'm doing with Turf Valley, that if I'm not going to be there as much, then my expectation of what we've started to create is, hey, this is the standard, and then trusting that that's going to get done. So, I think at like any owner, you got to figure out how people respond to stuff. Like two of my full-time coaches that have been there from the beginning, they respond to things completely differently. So what would motivate one might not motivate the other one. So, you have to learn those things, because if they're happy, then they're going to do a good job and be invested in the facilities.
How do you think that the way you are as a leader in your business affects the culture of your business?
I think there could be good and bad. I think for better or worse, sometimes I maybe give too much freedom. I find sometimes I need to be a little bit more specific about things. I always relate it back to experiences I've had as an employee, and I really valued when I felt like my opinion mattered. That I felt like if I wanted to create something that the bosses would, oh yeah, you want to create that program, go for it. So that's kind of what I'm looking for from my team. I don't know if that's realistic out of everybody, which is what I'm learning one way or the other.
Yeah.
Some people might need a little bit more structure, and other people, hey, if you give them something, let them fly with it and report back and let me know how it goes. And in a couple of years, it's just hopefully a well-oiled machine.
The personality that you bring to the table, I think if you try to be somebody that you're not, it doesn't work, right? So your story that these are the things that you liked, it makes all the sense in the world that that's the kind of culture that you would create. But then we all have those moments where we're like, oh, maybe people would thrive a little bit more. This person would thrive if I changed
Right.
a little bit. So it's that growth as a leader, right? And that growth as an owner.
Yeah, and it's just balancing it,
Yeah.
right? Like I always valued the facilities I worked at where it felt like a family. Um, but then within that, sometimes people get comfortable and things like that, and then conversations become tougher when expectations aren't met. But in those situations, I always looked forward to coming to work. I enjoyed the people I was around, so that was worthwhile to me. So it's a balance, but
When you talk to other people that are thinking about starting their own business, not necessarily in the golfing world, but just in general, they're thinking about it, and you've now gone down this road. You've been there. You've done the launch. You've done the
Mhm.
like craziness that goes into that. You've adapted. You've kept going. What sort of things do you automatically find yourself telling them when you hear that somebody wants to launch a new business?
Get different perspectives. I think in my case, I had a lot of people saying, "Yeah, that all looks good." Like it was almost like there was no room to fail, which I felt confident in. I mean, I asked a number of people, and I think because I had a lot of success as a t teacher, people viewed, that would be a home run. I still think it is going to be, but it was definitely a lot harder to get to that point. Get different perspectives, do your research, and sometimes you don't always have to take the big step, but small steps along the way can go a long way.
What does success look like to you?
Well, it probably looks different now than what I would have said 2 years ago. Success now is freeing up my time so I can spend more time at home, play more golf. As this grows and people are hopefully empowered and things like that, then, I have more time, especially in the next few years when, we start a family, things like that, that I'm available to be home and not just working all the time. So I'm trying to get that out of the way now.
And I know you've mentioned your fiance in conversations in the past, and I think I met her actually at the event where I met you. I
She
think
was
she
there
was
too,
there with
yeah.
you. Yeah. What would you say to her as in regards to you guys going on this journey together the last couple of years?
Well, she's been in it from the beginning. So I think it was probably like our third date, and she met up and we were just starting construction on the garage. So she came over, and so she's trying to explain to people that, oh yeah, I'm dating this guy that he's teaching golf in his garage. So a lot of people are like, what? She's been amazing. She's more of the, I'd say, sound reason of like she would have been one that from the beginning, if I involved her a little bit more, that might have had more reasonable expectations, or hey, this isn't going to be as easy as you think it is. And she works in mental health, so she's really good with people, and so she's pretty much my just everyday consultant, and she somehow, well, she probably does, but she doesn't say she gets tired of listening to it. So yeah, she's lived it, and it's a lot of hours, and but yeah.
The people we have in our life, it makes all the difference in the world, right? I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to be overly optimistic, and I think that's a good thing, honestly. I think we need it because building a business from scratch and keeping it going in the crazy hours and everything, it's not for the faint of heart. But we do need people that can ground us and sometimes ask those hard questions.
So yeah, well, if we weren't optimistic, it would be a whole lot harder to take that leap, right? It's easy to stay in a job that you're gonna get a paycheck every year, and you work Monday through Friday, and that's enjoyable for some people. But for me, first working in the golf industry, you're working weekends, you're working weeknights. So like honestly, if I had a whole weekend off and I couldn't go to the golf course, I don't know what I would do. But yeah, it is tough. I mean, a lot of nights right now, because we're busy, I'm coming home after 8 o'clock. So that does wear. So if you don't have the support, it's going to be, a lonely journey. So I'm definitely grateful that I have someone to go through it with.
What adjustments have you needed to make from the business side to make sure that you continue to invest in your relationship? Because that's something a lot of us entrepreneurs struggle with sometimes.
I take Sundays off. Now I do open my laptop in the morning and I do my daily revenue report, but I stay away from it on Sundays, and I'm not the best at it, but I try to put my phone away when I go home, be present. But yeah, it is tough because especially early on, especially with the cash flow, and you have to turn a profit right away, and then there's unexpected expenses, and you're pretty much living and dying by it, and you have your collateral like your house up, things like that, personal guarantees. So, it's kind of like a double-edged sword of how you balance that.
Because even if you feel pretty confident that you're going to be successful, whatever that means, but it always involves some sort of financial component, right? Like
It,
you'll be able to pay the bills at the end of the day and then hopefully have some level of a profit margin. there's still always the possibility for failure. And I think we all know that. And you definitely know that when you're looking at a daily revenue projection.
Oh yeah, and you know, and this is where you know, like I said earlier, put the business plan together, and I really thought I was being conservative in some of the things. You know, the first year, I think there were probably two pay periods where I couldn't pay myself, and you know, you're working all these hours, and you're like, I can't even pay myself. Like this is tougher than I thought, and you know, it's I'm part of a lot of different Facebook groups, and one of them's like a golf simulator owner business. You know, there was a post yesterday, a guy posted his business plan and he was a lot more optimistic than I was. And a lot of people are commenting, hey, I don't think it's going to work like that. You know, and I wish I knew about that resource before I started. You know, so you kind of just learn as you go and adapt.
I heard somebody say once that often people they look at like marathon runners. Okay, so I run at the gym, but I'm not a runner. I don't run
Mhm.
marathons or anything. But people sometimes they look at marathon runners and they think, oh, those people have gotten to the point where they no longer get tired. And the
Mm.
reality is that that's not true. It's that marathon runners learn where to put the tired so they can keep going. And I've often thought about that because I feel like as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, there is a certain level of stress that never goes away. And some of it may, but the idea that we're going to get to a place where we no longer feel any stress about our business, it probably isn't reasonable. But maybe there's a way or a place that we can put the stress. And I'm just curious, like, does that resonate with you at all? Do you find yourself doing that in any way, shape, or form? Are there places you can put the stress?
I like the analogy. You know, I don't know. I think it's definitely gotten better. You know, thinking 2023 versus 2024, to your point, where I feel like there's a lot less financial stress. Oh, there's other stressors now. It's like it's the stress.
Yeah, yeah. And you do get stronger, right? I mean, I think that's definitely true. Like we get stronger, we can hold more of it.
Yeah, and I think then you develop good systems that I looked at 2023 versus 2024. Okay, big focus was we're going to grow revenue, and we did. We had tremendous growth. Um, you know, but then when I look at it, like, okay, well, now where can we be better on the expense side? So I laid out this pretty robust Google sheet where I have all the tabs and I pretty much have, you know, the revenue reports, the P&L, you know, in every category broken down where just like in the daily revenue report, academy, private lessons, and then in those tabs, here's the projections, here's our marketing plans. And so I feel like, well, it's like the expression, you know, failing to plan is planning to fail. So I feel really good about having that laid out that I pretty much just have to follow steps and it's not reactive, oh, I need to market something or, you know, but it's also then learning now where, okay, here's the steps, what things can I delegate to other people to get this done? Because clearly this would be a good formula, but again, it's a lot to just take on by myself. It brings calmness because it's now just following directions essentially instead of being, you know, a lot more reactive and feeling the need to pivot and all that.
A good plan allows you to focus on the important things and not just the
Right.
urgent things.
Yeah. And not press the panic button because like, okay, yeah, here we are. And yeah, that's right on schedule. That's better. Okay, we missed it a little bit, but we did better that month. And but again, when you're wearing a lot of different hats, it's hard to sit down and put all that together, you know, because your owner, your manager, your maintenance, your marketing, your HR, your golf coach, you're doing all these things. And you know, it's you know, what's important now? Where do I need to focus my attention? And I think that's back to an earlier question, you know, that first year is, well, you know, the highest thing we can do per hour is my lessons. So I'm just going to focus on doing as many lessons as I can. And then, you know, got to repivot in the winter, which is kind of what we did.
Do you have a particular system or schedule for when you review your services or products specifically with the mindset of let's see where strategically we need to adapt? Is that sort of part of a routine for you? Do you just sort of do it when the numbers prompt you that way?
I think it's more numbers. When you do something every day, you're very connected to it and you have a pulse on exactly where you are. And again, I think that's where, either there's calmness or the heart rate starts to increase a little bit. And then the question comes that, okay, if this isn't sticking, what is it? Is it a price thing? Is it the actual service itself? And then kind of adapt from there.
What's one area where you want to continue to grow?
Probably the memberships, because the thing with the memberships is it's just peace of mind that X amount is coming in each month. Just growing the memberships, and then it's adding the value of, well, what do these numbers mean? How do I get better? And so people see that year-round value in it, and this isn't just something to do because it's cold outside.
It's that constant tension between trying to make sure you have enough of the ongoing predictable revenue, right? And while still allowing yourself to be flexible enough to take advantage of those moments where you can bring in a bunch of revenue, even if it's short term.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
All right, last question for you, Paul. When you look back over the last couple of years and this whole journey, your entrepreneurship journey, what are you most proud of personally?
That I took the leap. I think that was something that I always said, like, at least I said I did it, right? I had the courage to do it. So that would be the big thing.
Kudos to you. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming to share just about what your journey has been like as an entrepreneur. I wish you all the success in the world. I'm not much of a golfer, but I do hope to get down. I want to test out your facilities. I'll be one of the beginners that
Yeah, let
comes
me know when
in.
you want to come by and you can check it out. But yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to hearing some of the other entrepreneurs' journey, because I valued my relationships with some of my students that are entrepreneurs and getting their opinions on things. And I think even in different industries, you can pick up little bits of something that might apply and allow all of us as entrepreneurs to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, all the best to you and be in touch.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.